What exactly is goodwill in trust ethics? Up till now, there has been no proper definition of goodwill in trust as goodwill accounts. This is problematic because definitional clarity is fundamental to any debate. I aim to propose a definition of goodwill. Due to time constraints, I will only raise two of the most crucial parts of my account. So, what is the goodwill account of trust? APPE argued that trust is reliance on others' goodwill where there is accepted vulnerability. Specifically, she says trust is accepted vulnerability to another's possible but not expected ill will or lack of goodwill towards one. That means we acknowledge and understand that we are susceptible to harm, but we do not expect that they have an intention to do us dirty. Following that, Karen Jones and Zach Cogley objected to Annette Baye's characterization of trust because it was insufficient. Among other objections, Jones raised the point that the trusted has to give significant consideration to the task that they are trusted with. This is the quality of being trustworthy. Cogley raised the objection that one also had to be in a normatively characterized relationship for one to trust another. A normatively characterized relationship might look like a friendship or siblinghood, but is not limited to those. Crucial to all these relationships is that the relationship is constitutive of trust. Cogley says that this element is called a trust norm. When a healthy interpersonal relationship has the trust norm, the other person who is party to that relationship owes you goodwill because she should be directly and favorably moved by your counting on her. To qualify as a proper friend, romantic partner, or parent, you must see the other party as having a claim on your goodwill. Karen Jones later raised the worry that goodwill would become a meaningless catch-all that reports the presence of some positive motive that may not even be directed towards the truster. I will venture to offer a definition of goodwill so that trust as goodwill accounts do not have a weak foundation. What unites the ways we refer to goodwill? It is the notion of others. Others are explanatorily basic to the conditions for goodwill. When we see that another gives significant consideration that you are banking on them, we think they have goodwill. If someone gives significant consideration to your banking on them, this sense of consideration can only happen because you exist. Only when someone else exists in the picture can one give significant consideration to whatever they are trusted with. The same applies to being in a normatively characterized relationship with another. We think ourselves entitled to the other party's goodwill in such a relationship. The others must again first exist to form a relationship with us before we consider ourselves entitled to goodwill from them. If the others are explanatorily basic to the conditions for goodwill to be shown, then it seems like others play an essential role to goodwill's actuating. When I say others, I mean agents rather than non-agents. This is because we are only concerned with whom we can form relationships with that make trust intelligible. Furthermore, it is impossible to direct goodwill at ourselves. We do not hear people saying that they can show goodwill to themselves or even ill will towards themselves. Goodwill connotes a sense of doing right by someone. By this, I mean it in the sense of treating one fairly. But doing right by ourselves is an obsolete concept since we cannot do wrong by ourselves. When we decide something, we have implicitly consented to it. We are using ourselves as we permit. If we use ourselves as we permit, then our actions are necessarily right by us. One might, however, argue that it is possible to do wrong by myself in cases of coercion. That is, one is not using herself as she permits. For example, if a torturer demands that a victim eat a cockroach or else have her close one harmed, then in this case, she is not doing right by herself because she did not let herself do it, but she was forced to do it. When one is forced, one is not given an opportunity to consent. One cannot permit herself to do something. I reply that in this case, we are not doing ourselves right or wrong, but rather someone is doing wrong through us. We are merely the tools for them to do wrong by, and we have no choice, in this case, to use ourselves as we permit. Even though being directed at others is necessary for goodwill, This is still insufficient for goodwill. What exactly does it mean to be directed at others? What is directed at others is meeting another's needs. Let us dissect the meeting of another's needs into two parts: needs and meeting them. Firstly, let us talk about why we use the concept of needs. Goodwill is thought to be morally admirable, plausibly because something morally significant is at stake. Needs are morally significant because a particular state of affairs requires remedy. If the act of remedy can maintain or improve one's state of well-being, or at the very least prevent it from worsening, then there is moral value in it. We know that others form the impetus for acting in goodwill as previously established. If others are the impetus for acting, their needs are also our impetus for acting. This is because their needs constitute them. Without having their needs fulfilled, their well-being cannot be in shape. Secondly, we can talk about why we are meeting others' needs. If we think of how we are related to another's needs, there are only a few. We can either promote its being met, prevent its being met, or do nothing about its being met. Since the last two options are not morally worthy because it does not contribute towards what constitutes our very well-being, yet we know that goodwill is morally valuable, our option is to promote its being met. Thus, in goodwill, we are concerned with needs being met. But vagueness persists when we say goodwill is about meeting another's needs. Let us compare how it differs from its sister concept of helping another, which also involves meeting another's needs. Let us consider two scenarios. If Mary says that, "I will help the elderly lady cross the road," it implies that if the elderly lady drops her wallet while crossing the road, Mary also has to pick the wallet up. But of course, it has to be within Mary's means. That is, if an oncoming truck is headed towards Mary, she does not have to pick the wallet. If Mary fails to pick up the wallet, despite helping the elderly lady cross the road, one could think Mary has failed to help her. On the other hand, if Mary says, "I will assist the elderly lady in crossing the road out of goodwill," then it implies that she only needs to do what it takes to help the elderly lady cross the road. If the wallet drops and she only assists the elderly lady across the road without picking it up, Mary seems to still have done an act of goodwill. Helping another conveys a full commitment to meet another's needs because it involves a commitment to the one receiving help herself. If someone will help you to X, it implies an implicit commitment both to do X and to you for the duration of X. Mary has to do what constitutes the elderly lady crossing the road and what is constitutive of the elderly. As we have established earlier, agents are constitutive of needs, but needs are challenging to predict by nature for three reasons. Firstly, they could arise unexpectedly. The elderly lady's wallet might suddenly drop, and her financial source in a way is at stake. Secondly, we might not be very good estimators of our needs. The elderly lady might assume her knees are strong enough to travel across the road, but not expect them to give out halfway. Thirdly, sometimes one's needs can only be met successfully insofar as another part of the need is completed. If the elderly lady's legs give way while crossing the road, Mary has to attend to this need as well by carrying her, for her to help the elderly lady cross the road. In committing also to the one receiving help, the one showing help is agreeing to meet these additional needs that pop up from the one receiving help. Retrieving the wallet is a need for the elderly, but not that of crossing the road, for the road still can be crossed even if the wallet lay unpicked. This explains why Mary has to pick up the elderly lady's wallet to fully help the elderly. Goodwill does not convey a full commitment to meet another's needs because there is no commitment towards the one receiving goodwill. If someone assists you to X out of goodwill, there is only a commitment to do X for the duration of X. There is no implicit commitment to the one receiving goodwill, unlike helping another. In this case, Mary only has to do what constitutes crossing the road. This means Mary does not commit to what is constitutive of the elderly lady, including any additional needs that arise from her. In this case, picking up the wallet is a need of the elderly, not of crossing the road. Thus, Mary has no commitment to picking up the wallet. That explains why our intuition would tell us that Mary still has expressed goodwill. Having a commitment to do what one expresses goodwill for seems to play a crucial role in goodwill accounts. If one does not commit to meeting those needs for which she has expressed goodwill for, it seems doubtful whether one truly has goodwill. We can think of it as one is committed to meeting only certain needs of another in goodwill, but one is committed to all needs of another in helping another. By certain needs, I mean only acts or the task requiring assistance. Goodwill Mary is committed to the elderly ladies crossing the road only for the duration of X. In this video, I have discussed two vital parts of my definition of goodwill. That is, the role that others play, and secondly, the importance of being committed to meet certain needs of another. Without a commitment to meet certain needs of others, even when one professes to have goodwill, one's goodwill can be doubted.